So thank you all for being here. Thank you for spending your Saturday talking about eye and vision research. We are delighted that you all are here, and welcome all of you to the 10th annual Bench to Bedside Symposium organized by the Gavin Herbert Eye Institute. It's a bittersweet event for us. Obviously, many of you know Kenney was the person who initiated this event and had been running it for a long, long time. Unfortunately, she passed away late last year, and we have instituted a new Kenney Memorial Lecture, which will be, the inaugural lecture will be given by Deborah Farrington, who collaborated with Chris and was a good friend. And so we are very grateful and excited that Deb is here to do that. And I think that Chris would have been happy and proud of this event. Thank you all for being here. And again, let's hope we have a great day together about vision research.
Thank you, everyone. Let's continue the program, and it's an unusual part of the program, and it's with sorrow and mourning, but also a celebration. We want to acknowledge the passing of Chris Kenney, a cherished colleague, mentor, friend. Chris is from New Mexico, proudly so, the land of enchantment, Santa Fe, New Mexico. There's her family home, her elementary school. Her junior high school didn't make it. It's got repurposed to another school, so it's not photographed here as things happen. But there's her high school, where she was an outstanding student there, of course. She was a competitive swimmer, straight-A student, class president, and honor society president. She began her higher education at the University of New Mexico, and somewhat bizarrely, I didn't think it happened in the 70s. I thought that's more of an older vestige. She wanted to be a pre-med student, but she was initially denied because she was a woman. But she persevered and did get her degree in biology and chemistry, then went on to earn a PhD in anatomy and biochemistry at Arizona State University in Tucson, and then moved to the University of Southern California, where she was a postdoctoral fellow in collagen and biochemistry. And then she went on to UCLA in med school. They didn't seem to have a problem admitting women. And again, strange that you would have thought this was a prior era. Still don't know what to make about New Mexico then. But again, after graduating from getting her MD at UCLA, she went on to residency at White Memorial, which is a Loma Linda affiliated hospital in LA. She was very dedicated to that work. She served as an outstanding ophthalmologist and researcher for a 35-year career, and she very much loved her work. She began her practice at Cedars-Sinai in Los Angeles and stayed there for 15 years. In 2002, the Gavin Herbert Eye Institute, at that time, Peter McDonald was chair. He then left to become the chair at Wilmer Eye Institute, where he still reigns, and he recruited Tony and Chris and their whole, many of their group to come join us in 2002. And again, we had the good fortune and good sense, Peter did, to recruit her to UC Irvine to lead the Mitochondrial Research Laboratory. I want to acknowledge that for all those years, I attached myself to that lab, and that became was a happy collaborator with her, and we shared that lab. I brought in the fellows, most of them international fellows, to work with her. We shared ideas, and she was my closest colleague and collaborator from a research standpoint. And in fact, as I've shared with Tony, the reason I stayed here, I was at one point thinking of leaving. David Boyer was busy trying to recruit me to go to LA, and Chris arrived, and I fell in love with the research that we could do together, and I've happily stayed ever since. So in many ways, I owe my career here at UCI to Chris, so I always think of her and miss her so much. Chris took a unique approach to her work using these hybrids that have revolutionized the field of mitochondrial research, showing that mitochondria have wide-ranging biological effects never before imagined, and opening up the field of mitochondrial therapy to careful investigation for AMD. Chris was a highly accomplished clinician scientist with an impressive track record of imaginative and pioneering research. She advanced scientific knowledge, as mentioned, of mitochondria tremendously, earning a reputation as one of the world's foremost experts on the subject. She published more than 185 peer-reviewed manuscripts. She was the recipient of numerous research grants and awards from the NIH and private foundations for her work in macular degeneration, keratoconus, and the study of other eye diseases. She was a recipient of the University of Arizona Foundation Award for Meritorious Performance and other awards. As you can see here, She also kindly served in the NIH Visual Science A study section for many years and was its chairperson from 1998 to 2000. The tributes to Chris poured in with her passing, many more than we can list here, but Dr. Jameson, who gave a lecture earlier today, in everything she did, Chris Kenney was always dedicated to the well-being of others. I think that's a profound and true statement. I think many of us would put Chris in that category. There's always more than one, but it's always like the nicest person you ever met. There can't be more than one of those, but she was in that group of people that you would say that about. She was an amazing, kind soul. More tributes come in. Here from Neon Lin, Zaw, Winston. Dr. Kenney was a truly selfless person. Her dedication to her work, her colleagues, and her students was nothing short of admirable. Seeing the closed door of her office every day is a sad reminder that she is no longer with us. There's more comments here from Dr. Brown. Chris was unconditionally kind. That's a recurrent theme we see. From Sherry Adelano and Marilyn Chua, who both were the devoted technicians that worked in her lab, and they're here. I saw them earlier. Again, Chris's true legacy lies with the physicians and scientists she mentored and inspired, and how she encouraged us all to be the best version of ourselves. We mourn the irreplaceable loss of a cherished friend, an exceptionally collaborative researcher, and a mentor to countless individuals. Chris was beloved by all. She had a warm and engaging personality and was one of the kindest souls we ever knew. We hope to find many ways to honor her in our department for years to come. I'm privileged to call her a friend, a colleague, and an intimate colleague and soulmate in many ways, all the things that we shared. I miss her and mourn her, as we all do. Thank you for all you've done for us, Chris.
Thank you, Dr. Cooperman, for such a wonderful tribute. My name is Stephanie Liu. I'm on the faculty here in the Retina Division. I would like to take the opportunity to pay my own tribute to Dr. Kenney. Dr. Kenney is such a special friend. I started my residency back in 2005, and she was my research mentor. I had many research mentors in my life, in college, medical school, but she is the best of all. And I remember she just started her mitochondria research at that time, and she knows how challenging it can be to do research during residency. So she actually carved out a small section of the big research project just for me, and then she guided me through from the experiment design, actually work in the lab, work on the PCR. I still remember how dedicated she was. When I was in the research lab after hours and the weekends, Chris was always there. She's always working. And then she was always happy to see me there. And then because of her guidance, I actually won the research award for that year. Thank you, Chris. Later on, a few years later, I joined the faculty, and then she became a colleague. And then at that time, she was still a comprehensive ophthalmologist at the time, so we share a lot of patients together. She is a wonderful clinician. Not only she's a top-notch research scientist, but she's also a wonderful clinician. Patients love her. And then later on, of course, she dedicated all her time to research, so she stopped practicing. But I still see her at the departmental meetings and the conferences. Every time she sees me, she always gives me a big hug, huge smile on her face. She celebrates every single little win and every single little advancement I had in my career. She is such a wonderful friend, colleague, mentor. There are no words I can use to describe how wonderful she is. She's just such an awesome, awesome human being. And then she's always gonna have a special place in my heart. And then I miss her so much. Thank you.
This is such an honor to give this first lecture in her honor. I named this lecture after the title of our co-authored chapter, Mitochondria, the retina's Achilles heel in AMD. And Chris and I had a lot of discussions about the name of this chapter, and we really liked the definition of an Achilles heel because we really feel like it captured the essence of what we both thought about the mitochondria with age-related macular degeneration. I want to honor Chris and all of the contributions she and her lab have made.
I would just like to acknowledge my project collaborators. Chris Kenney, I've worked with for more than 10 years. Moving forward, we hope to continue Chris Kenney's vision on this issue.
It's a really great honor to be here, and especially in this session. And I just want to say a few words about women and vision research. Well, when I came here, I put together a committee for vision research in Center for Translational Vision. And guess who was the first person that joined the committee? That was Dr. Kenney. Thank you. Ready for questions.
Dr. Kenney, or now I have to call her Chris, because she asked me a few years ago why I don't call her Chris, and I said it's because you're the super boss. You're just not the regular boss, you're the super boss. And so I worked for Chris for almost 27 years. She was my first boss out of grad school. And I remember interviewing with her, and I was like, yeah, I'd like to work for her. Chris was the best boss. I mean, she was so kind and sweet, and she had great ideas, and she appreciated our ideas and really nurtured us, you know? And, you know, if it wasn't a science problem, she'd still listen to you, you know? I will miss talking to her, because we saw her towards the end, like the last 5 to 6 years, you know, we saw her every day, you know? And then if we're having like a bad time in the lab or a bad time at home, you know, we'd go in the office and she'd be like, you can close the door, and we close, and we just talk about stuff. And I remember she told me once, you know, don't do anything permanent. This is what my parents told me, which meant back then was getting pregnant and then tattoos and death, right? She was, as long as it's not permanent, it's okay, you can fix it. I really appreciated how she supported me with my daughter. So Amelia needed some volunteer time. And I said, you know, can you come volunteer, maybe help you in the office with some papers? And Dr. Kenney's like, no, we're going to teach her how to use BioRender. I'm like, she's only 13. She goes, no, I know she can do it. She's a smart girl, just like her mom. She can do it. And guess what? We taught her how to do BioRender. Chris would always do the drawings on paper. And I said, Amelia, this is how you do it, my daughter. And she did it. And Chris was so impressed and proud of her. And she... when other people, adults, would say, oh, they can't use BioRender, and she'd be like, Sherry's daughter did it. So, and she's 13, so you can do it, right? There was never a project that was over. We kept a lot of stuff in the freezers because she liked to revisit things, you know. She's like, remember that project from 2015? I'm like, yes. And you know what else was amazing? Is I could barely keep track of my own projects, right? But she kept track of everybody's project. I mean, I don't even know how many of us, there's like 10 of us, and she knew what everybody was doing, and she followed up with everybody. How's it going? What do you need? You know, let's talk about your project and where it's going and stuff. Yeah. I was gonna work for her until she retired. I was like, I'll just keep coming, you know, and when you retire, okay, maybe I'll have to find another job. But Marilyn, our other coworker who's worked for Chris for over 35 years, she said, I don't want another boss, and she's gonna retire. She's like, that's it. I don't want to work for anybody else. We had a lot of fun. You know, it wasn't all work all the time. We had a lot of fun, which is what I'm gonna miss. You know, all the chats. Like, I don't know. She was like, she wasn't quite old enough to be my mom, but like an auntie, you know, or just a really good friend. More than a boss.